A little while ago, I bought myself this marvelous clip-on macro lens for my camera phone, which has let me shoot some really cool close-ups of bugs and flowers and all of the normal stuff that you shoot with a macro lens. I've got this really cool looking piece of street art in front of me here, so I'm going to clip my macro lens to that and see what I can make with it. This macro lens just clips on to my camera just like that, and what it does is it lets me focus on things that are much closer to the lens than I'd otherwise be able to get sharp in the viewfinder. Macro photography is, as anyone who's ever done it will tell you, hard. The tricky thing about it is that depth of field, so how much of the frame is in focus at once, is very, very shallow, and that makes autofocus incredibly difficult because it's affected by, among other things, how much you, a human that wobbles, moves forwards and backwards. So here we're just maybe a centimetre or two off the surface of this amazingly coloured wall, and we've got this absolute, almost just a hair's width it looks like, down the middle of the frame that's actually sharp. Now there are a couple of ways of going about getting a sharp image here. We can obviously tap all over the screen and try and get it to catch focus, but it's going to jump around all over the place. So probably the simplest way, well definitely the simplest way to go about it is to hit the pro mode or expert mode or whatever your camera calls it. I'm going to hit AF, so AF obviously standing for autofocus, and as soon as I start pulling this slider along, I go from AF to MF or manual focus. So as I scroll this way on the slider, I'm bringing that focus, that plane of focus, plane of sharpness, closer toward the lens, and as I go the other way, you can actually see it running through the image off that way to those parts of the wall that are further away. So for now, I'm going to put the focus roughly in the middle of the frame. I'm going to see if I can get that nice graduation from blue to green, because that kind of colour shift is what I think is really interesting about this image. I think that looks pretty cool. And what's nice about manual focus is that the camera's not working against you, it's fixed to that manual focus result. So I can focus on different areas by moving the whole thing in and out. I'm going to hit go on that, and I'm going to find as many different graduations of colours as I can. I'm going to shoot as many different focuses as I can, including maybe a completely defocused option. Let's just see what that looks like. I'm going to get as many as I can in, and then I'm going to see which ones are my favourite in the edit. Now, I was on a bit of a mission when it came to these macro photographs, and consequently I don't have that many that I really dislike. I was being sort of fairly careful about them, mainly because macro photography is somewhere where it's easy to get it super wrong, and the more attention you pay when you're shooting, the less you'll be chucking away later. This frame I really like because you have this graduation between this deep, almost blood red here, and this nice kind of hazy, I don't know, sort of sunset purple, lavender I suppose, on the far side of the frame. I really like how the focus shifts from super sharp on the brickwork here to totally defocused here. And the other thing that I'm noticing, and I guess this is just how I was holding the camera, is that the plane of focus, the way that the focus shifts from sharp to not, is a diagonal line across the frame, which to me adds a bit of energy to a picture that I think is already pretty interesting. This is one of the first images that I took, and this is of the colourful paint on the wooden board. I like all of this kind of wooden grain running through the image. It's a very kind of organic feeling picture, I suppose. All of this green kind of splattered paint might be sort of moss or algae growing on it, admittedly in a slightly more lurid colour than you're used to. As you normally expect with macro photography, there's a really abrupt fall off in sharpness, which means that all of this much lighter green here is totally defocused, which again is an effect I really like. A bit of an abstract picture for you. Now I suppose in some ways this is cheating because you don't really need a macro lens to take a picture like this. Pretty much any defocus lens will do the trick, and this is just the result of using that manual focus, pulling the focus all the way back to the camera and then standing back a bit so that everything beyond the camera was out of focus. You've still got the graduation from this kind of deeper blue to this much more interesting verdant green. Is that what we would call that maybe? But it's still a picture that I really like. I think it will look really nice as a kind of carousel or a triptych.